Noon or good evening, wherever you may be listening to us from, here on this big, beautiful planet we call Earth. This is Michael Cross here with another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions, where we do not throw out fake news like the corporate media seems to enjoy doing. You know what really bugs me about the corporate media? Not so much that they throw out the fake stuff, but that they believe that everyone that listens believes them. I mean, that is so ridiculous. Anyway, before I begin, I'd just like to encourage people to check out my website. And if you're listening to this later, it's up there on the corner that you can click on YouTube and check out my official website where I have a lot of stuff written. I just recently did a article on biotechnology, which relates to my new book, The Destiny of Our Past. You can check that up on your own there, The Destiny of Our Past. It's a detective thriller set in the era of Noah. Okay? So, and also, become a subscriber so you can keep up on, future shows. Anyway, now let's get to the topic of today's show, which I think is actually quite important, and that is, what is it that possesses people psychologically to be doing a lot of these violent things that you see in the protest in recent days or weeks or even, months? Why is it that you see people who are proclaiming peace using violence to attack those people that they disagree with? In other words, using the method of war in order to get their objective, which I guess is to silence the other people. And tied into this, is, what is it with many people who are so threatened with freedom of speech? Okay? And I'm not defending all stuff that you see out there. But what is it that possesses people, instead of debating a topic, to suddenly start, making laws and restrictions is the same thing as actually throwing rocks to stop people from speaking. You're trying to silence ideas. And that, I think, has a psychological origin. Okay? It has a psychological origin. Now, what I'd like to do is mostly dwell upon the theories of Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. Now, before you start saying, there's a lot of their theories have been shown not to be true. I had a discussion with someone just recently that actually even admitted that a lot of Freud's stuff is very valid. But they said, a lot of his stuff has been disproven. And I said, which things have been disproven? And suddenly I got this blank stare. It's actually kind of funny that people suddenly react that way. And why is it that you only start studying Freud in marketing when you get to the higher levels of marketing? Why is it that in the lower levels you don't hear about it? And why is it in, high school psychology classes around the United States you really don't really get that much about theory in regards to Freud and even Skinner, Jung, and those kinds of people? I wonder if there's some reason that goes deeper than, those guys were all like years ago, and let's keep it modern. I think it's because there are some real insights that could make people uncomfortable. Okay, that would challenge people. That would make them think on the basis of society today. Now, a couple things that Jung said, and I'm paraphrasing him, is that what bothers us in other people is a reflection of what is disturbing us in our inner psyche. Also, he said that the person who tortures others is doing so as a method of torturing themselves. And that to really understand what is at the core of who you are, what bothers you, about others is ultimately what is, really an issue with yourself. Now, the thing is, what Jung is saying is, if you're irritated with someone because of the way they dress, if you're irritated by the way a person acts, if you're irritated by the way whatever a person does, the irritation is often most prevalent and excessive even when it's something that you yourself are bothered with, that your subconscious is hiding and pushing down and really trying to keep a chain on. But sometimes when you see others doing it, it just sets you off. So it's sort of like I've often said that the people who are the most anti-smoker, and I don't mean people that are against smoking, because of health reasons per se, but the person that reacts emotionally when someone lights a cigarette up near them, and they're feeling like just going over there and pouring a bucket of water on their head, are often the people who maybe were chain smokers for 10, 15, 20 or more years. And they gave it up, but then they see someone else smoking and it really bothers them because there's a part of them that still remembers the pleasure they received when they smoked. I'm not denying that there must be a pleasure. I've never smoked myself, but, I know the role of stimulants and nicotine and so forth. And so ultimately there would be some sort of mechanism of reward. And you've cut that mechanism of reward off in your life, and when you see someone else still partaking of it, that really, really bothers you. I almost use the word trigger, but ultimately I'll get to that in a moment. Now, Freud had a word for this. He called it reaction formation. He had some other terminology for this sort of thing too that I'll get to, such as projection. But ultimately, Freud believed that there were 3 levels of the human mind. Okay? There was the id, which represents that part of us that is instinctive. The part that would like to do something, but because of social norms and so forth, or the fear of being punished, you don't do it. Okay? It's the part that would be exemplified by when you're watching one of these old Tom and Jerry or Donald Duck cartoons, and Donald Duck or Tom or whatever is about ready to do real major harm on one of these little rodents or something that's really irritating him. And suddenly you'll get on one shoulder, you'll get the angel, and the other one you get the devil. Signified by usually some character that has like the pitchfork or whatever. And the one with the pitchfork is saying, do it, do it, do it. Whereas the angel's saying, no, no, you're too good, don't do this, it's bad. Well, the devil part is the id. It's the part which would like to express itself hyper-emotionally or instinctively, as in fulfilling some sort of base sexual or aggressive behavior. Now, it's usually kept in check by the superego. The superego is all of the norms, all of the rules that you learn from school, from church, from synagogue, mosque, whatever, and your parents, and reinforced by society, saying, thou shalt not do this. All right? Or if you see someone that needs help, thou shalt do that. And it keeps a tab on the id and usually is in control. Of course, using mechanisms such as guilt and fear of being ostracized because you do something wrong. And the part of you that's conscious of all of this is the ego. Now, even though your ego is unaware of all of these things going on down there any more than if you look at like your body itself, You may be conscious of such things as, well, if you get bitten by your cat when you're petting it or something like that, but you're very rarely conscious of peristalsis, which is, the movement of food and liquid in your intestines, which is going on all the time. You're very rarely cognizant of your heart. These are autonomic functions of your body that, unless someone mentions them, like if I were to say, is your right leg itching right now? Well, most of the time your body is itching at some point, but you don't even notice it. Okay? But now that I've said your right leg is itching, you're probably scratching your leg. Now, the human mind works the same way. The human mind is thinking in the terms of the here and now most of the time, unless it's like in a dream state or so forth, where it's kind of let to wander. But it is nevertheless being influenced by the id and the superego. And so when something happens, you see something, an external stimulus, and your reaction is to a large degree going to be based on that constant interplay between the id and the superego. Now, of course, this is metaphorical. Freud recognized that. There's not a part of the brain called the id. There's not a part of the brain called the superego. Although you could say the hypothalamus represents the drive part of your brain, and the cerebral cortex, the intellectual part. But, again, those are simplistic models thrown out, but they still explain how things work. Now, let me explain, first of all, that I'm not saying that just social justice warriors or the left is the one that is often guilty of these hyper-emotional outbursts when confronted with a stimulus. I would say there are people on the religious right, okay, or even the everyone to a certain degree. But there are people who are in the religious right who could also be charged with this as well if it was a crime. It's not. But let me explain. If you have a situation that elicits a response that's something you disagree with, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you saying something about it. If you see someone torturing an animal, the natural response is to want to stop them. All right? Because you're emotionally, you got this empathy for this poor creature. And so you want to stop it. It's not unusual if you see any kind of exploitation of people to not to like it. If someone says something that goes against your beliefs, there's nothing wrong with saying something about it. Okay? Because human beings, if you want to say, back to Freud, he did state that civilization started when people stopped throwing rocks and used words instead. And that's true. We don't, we have disputes with our family and our friends and our neighbors and our co-workers and whatever. If we just went back to some sort of animalistic approach, there'd be more dead people than an episode of Murder in Midsummer. Or some of those kind of British shows where, all these people wind up, killing each other off. So what we do instead is we debate, we discuss. And this has been a hallmark of Western civilization. In fact, I would say the times when Western civilization has ceased to really control itself is when we've tried to clamp down on freedom of expression and discussion and so forth. Then when you clamp down, that doesn't stop the emotions. They just burst out in other ways. Now, what I'm talking about too, when I'm talking about when things go to a neurotic level, is when instead of just feeling a certain level of wanting to address an issue, the person has a hyper-emotional reaction. And that is often going to be based on their own inner turmoil. I often say this. You see, you get those people that they're walking, they go out in front of a nice clothing store, and they see a woman walk out with a fur coat. And they're like, let's say they're young, strong, be they male or female. And this is a little old lady coming out with a fur coat. And they throw a bucket of blood on her and start screaming about how insensitive she is and what kind of monster she is. Now, I would say those kinds of responses would probably have their origin in the fact that the person throwing the blood is so consumed with their own inner demons, for instance, their own fear of how brutal they are, whether it be towards animals or humans or whatever, that they take it out on another person. All right, you see my point? They're the ones who have to control themselves. They're the ones who have to, in some way, prove how good they are by virtue signaling and being able to say, I'm better than you, and I will punish you for your misdeeds. When in reality, the action of this violence that they've just now taken part in is basically soothing their own inner demon or id and saying, good job. You've done what's right. Okay? So there's a lot of examples that you could throw in. For instance, the person who's always harping about pornography in church. And often the one that harps the most is the one who, if you had a look at their computer history, okay, it would blow your socks off. The thing is that, yes, it's okay to say something about something. But usually the person who's making the biggest stink about something is not just doing it on an intellectual level. They're doing it in some way to calm the inner demon, and it's kind of a mirror onto their own soul, as Carl Jung would say. Now let's get a little further here. Let's ban free speech. Okay? The people that are out there screaming about we need to be sensitive to other people. I've actually noticed in my own life that some of the people who claim to be so ideologically pure when it comes to political correctness, when you talk to them, over, I don't drink, but, I might sit down with people who are drinking. They get a little bit of wine in them. Oh my gosh, they're like, it's like walking into an English pub after a soccer match. They're the most politically incorrect. And this would indicate to me that they are so afraid of how far they feel they would go overboard if there were not laws about speech and other people's behavior, that they want to govern the other people, because in their own mind, everyone has the same flaw. Everybody is suffering from the same sort of neurosis, and so therefore it's going to have to be a one-size-fits-all. Everyone has to be controlled. Everyone has to have their internet monitored, because they might go to naughty sites. Okay? They may say, oh, we got to protect the children. In reality, they're protecting themselves. They may say, we have to protect this group of people. Now, I have no problem with saying that we need to treat others fairly. I think discrimination based on race, religion, any number of factors is not just unfair, it's kind of dumb, because you can really learn a lot from other people. But often when you go to an extreme in which you're saying that a person cannot wear a costume from another culture, even if they're from that culture, is going to an extreme that makes me think there's something going on within them. When you have a situation where if a person of American Indian heritage wants to wear something that looks American Indian, and then someone challenges them on it as it being racist, and they're like, excuse me, my mother was Arapaho or Lakota or whatever, and they're saying, well, yeah, but you're still buying into the notion of stereotyping. And this person's like, what? I mean, think about if you're Irish and you put on something for St. Patrick's Day, someone comes up to you and says, no, that's offensive. And you're saying, well, I'm Irish. And then they'll say, but that's doubly offensive because you're offending yourself. I'm not joking about this. All right? This is part of... I spend time on social media sites where, oh my gosh, where people will be jumping on each other for all these new terms that have come through sociology classes here, there, and wherever. And, you get this virtue signaling that you get people... Now, this is the ultimate irony with virtue signaling, okay? And that's what it's called, I'm better than you, so you need to follow these rules. So you won't hurt other people. And the other people are going, well, I don't hurt other people. Yes, you do. And they're saying, well, no, I don't. Yes, you do. And the fact that you say you don't proves you do. But you're like, what? But the thing is, the ultimate irony with the virtue signaler is often these are people that come from very comfortable homes. They come from they come from an affluent enough background that they can major in sociology and still probably get a job, through their dad or mom's business or somewhere later. And they will point the finger at someone who lives in a trailer court, married with 3 kids, works in a mill. And when that person starts, when that person says, well, I don't know, they're going to vote Republican because they're afraid that the mill's going to be shut down if Democrats pass certain environmental legislation, they get called racist. They get called bigots. They get called elitist. In fact, they might even get the charge of white privilege. And the thing is, this person's going, what? What are you talking about? And the ultimate is when I hear people point their finger, some social justice warriors pointing their finger at Asians and accusing them of white privilege. The person's Japanese going, what? I'm not white. And they say, no, but you're from an affluent country, therefore you're essentially white. Again, look it up. There's lots of cases of this. And again, where does this come from? Where does this come from? Where is it part of, when you see it, one case, the guy that lives in the trailer goes fishing with his friend who's black. And, they're best of friends. They hang out with each other. They spend time with each other's families. Whereas the only time the liberal sees someone of another race is when they hold a special seminar and can think about how wonderful they are because they're going to go hear someone talk of a different race because they only hang out in coffee shops. They only hang out with other people who are the same background, upper class and white. And, there is an irony there that needs to be addressed. And so essentially I'm thinking that maybe the person who's jumping on the person who lives in the trailer may be the one that holds those kinds of feelings that they're condemning in others. And therefore, this justifies them going out and throwing stuff at people who happen to be at a Trump rally. This justifies a white guy yelling racist at a Hispanic guy wearing a Trump hat and beating him up. This justifies it even more when the media says that it's okay. And I'm not just talking about corporate media that doesn't say enough against this sort of thing, but some of the alternative media on the left, which actually encourage, or at least in some way justifies it. Well, they deserved it because. Because see, that makes it even more dangerous, because not only is the person feeling justified because they've got this inner turmoil taking place within their own heart and mind, now you've got sources from the outside that are saying that that's legitimate, that they wind up getting into fights, that they wind up saying that we need to shut this speech taking place down. We need to ban these people from our university from being able to have a discussion. And this means it's going to get worse. You don't tell someone who's suffering from alcoholism that, oh, I understand why you're an alcoholic. In fact, I could fully feel for you. I would drink too if, fill in the blanks. It's the same thing if you're telling someone, well, the people you disagree with, they must be evil. They must be fascist. And therefore, let's go ahead and unleash that inner aggression to teach them a lesson. Now, here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand. I already said, this is not something that just exists within people on the left. There are plenty of demons lurking under the surface of people on the right. You see, the id, the ego, superego, it exists in everyone. Black, white, Asian, brown, Hispanic, gay, straight, lesbian, whatever. It exists in all people. If you have a situation where some of the media starts going, well, it's okay, to beat up this person or throw eggs or whatever, think about the time when the other media is unleashing the demons that are in those guys living in the trailer court, living in suburbia or whatever. This is where you wind up with situations that exist in many parts, like Libya right now, where everyone's fighting everyone else in order to get power. When you had the government taken out by the United States, but no plan on what to do afterwards. This is not the kind of Hobbesian world you want. I think if you want to have civilization, you better be promoting the idea that people talk and discuss. I love having discussions with people I disagree with, because I can learn more about my own position and also build my own position up. This is what our democracy is based on. I can't imagine what it would be like to say, okay, you and you're friends, but you can't discuss politics because you might disagree with one another. Think about what that does. Then you start resenting other people. We start having more racial divide because all of a sudden people are afraid of offending each other. We start winding up with more polarization. We start winding up with a situation where men start resenting women and women start hating men. And we have a total balkanization based on things that shouldn't get in the way of people. And it's all going to increase if we just give in and think, well, let's go ahead and for this reason we will ban this, and for this reason we will ban that. I'm just wondering, what if we impose the same rules that we're seeing imposed on college campuses around the United States, and rules that are being suggested that go to the municipal level and the state level and who knows, federal level? What if we impose those on the entertainment we watch? Think about that for a moment. how dry and bland it would be. Can't deal with anything controversial. Might cause people to be uncomfortable. I mean, what would we watch? Well, we certainly couldn't watch old cartoons, could we? We have to ban all those. We have to ban most of our classic movies. In fact, we'd have to ban pretty much everything that we see on TV at present. And the thing is that this is not going to make things go away. This is going to increase the danger that eventually, if everything is bottled up, it explodes. I would much rather have a country, the United States, in which people can discuss issues. And if nothing else, that eases the tension. Whenever you've had a discussion, for a little while, you feel a little bit of that adrenaline going through you, maybe, because you've just been in a virtual fight, not a real fight, but, you're still on edge a bit. But then it calms down and you get calmer than you were before. Maybe you saw something on TV and you're running up, and let's say you're a liberal, you're running up to your friend at work who's a Trump supporter, and you're like, hey man, why did Trump do this? And that person's like, well, I guess he did it for this. And then, it's okay. Then you're asking about, hey, what'd you think about the football game the other day? Now, what if you didn't have that right to go up to the Trump supporter and yell at him? Not really yell, but confront in a friendly way. Well, it's going to simmer inside of you. Your little inner demon's still going to be working up, kind of like it's going to be like trying to break out of its shell. And at some point, it's going to really want to erupt. And one other thing that's really dangerous about this situation is that our media today, we are becoming, because of the internet, and I'm not condemning this, because I like the fact that we have an internet. I like the fact that we're able to discuss things and find out information. So when, you get the big newspapers back east, run an article, and you can, in just a few seconds, find out how far they've lied today by checking the source. I like that. That gives us something at our fingertips to do. But we also have a tendency to want to get into our own little areas where we feel confirmed. Now, when that happens, be it from the right or the left, then we start throwing this fact out and this fact out. This really makes me angry. And then, well, did you hear about this? And you throw this out here. And there's no balance. So our internet actually is increasing the tension. At the same time, the fact that we have a free society means we can let it out in a peaceful manner. Again, you're mad at the Trump supporter at work, you go up and you start talking. Guaranteed, most of the time, you're not going to be griping about politics that long. It's going to be like whatever, okay, and then you get back to normal life. But if we have a situation where we don't allow that, and then people start just becoming more and more agitated and angry, especially when you throw in, and I'm not, there are some sites out there that are obviously clickbait. They're there just to create fake news. Okay, there are such things. All right. And they're on the left as much as they are from the right. Believe me. Okay, I see, I told you, on my social media, I got a lot of left-wing people. And I got a lot of right-wing people. And I see stuff posted that I'm like, that's ridiculous. And I already know that if I click it on, it's just going to be an advertisement. But, I'll tell you one thing. The reason why I kind of know this is because I also know what's in the alternative right and the alternative left. And therefore, if you see some really sensational thing that's not been covered, or at least touched upon by some of those sources, then you can be pretty sure that it's probably questionable. All right? So there is a certain level of validity, that you're looking for. I'm certainly not going to look to CNN as being a source of, oh, now I know the truth. Or some of these internet so-called fact-checker things. I think if you know a little bit about politics, you can pretty much use discernment and be able to go, get past that. So the thing is that this kind of polarization that the internet allows for needs to have free press and freedom in social media, not crackdowns, not banning someone and not telling them about it, or just outright, deleting posts that are from a conservative side, for instance, so it looks like only the liberal side is posting or whatever. You can't have that. You need to have free exchange of ideas. And the only people that are going to be scared of the free exchange of ideas, be it issues of religion, be it issues of politics, be it issues of gender or issues of animal rights or whatever, are going to be the ones who have their own self-doubts and don't want to take the chance that other people have those same self-doubts and therefore may be swayed to abandon that position and go over to the other position. Only the insecure want to ban. Only the insecure want to silence. Only the insecure want to, for whatever reason, keep someone from expressing an idea. And I kind of like that old, when I went to high school, I had a very, very liberal Democrat teacher. And we were discussing issues relating to should communists be allowed to speak, to pornography. And he always said that the First Amendment was a double-edged sword. It may cut your way today, but it might cut you tomorrow. And that is something that everyone needs to understand. That when you make a law, it can be applied to you. And so it's best to lean towards a more libertarian approach to free speech. Let everyone have their say, as kooky as it may sound, whether they be right-wing or left-wing. Let them expose themselves. And as Voltaire said, I may disagree with you, but I'll fight to the death to preserve your right to say it. So that is a healthy approach. That is an approach to an issue where you're saying that I am so secure with my stands that I believe that reason will win in the end. But if you're not secure and you believe, oh my gosh, people are going to, or whatever, that means you've got an insecurity of your own. And you probably are only overreacting because you're afraid that other people possess your particular, call it id, or a dangerous mindset, or neurosis, or whatever. So ultimately, I'd like to conclude, we need to have freedom. We need to make sure that things stay as they are in Western society, where we know that we can, as Freud said, we can use those words so that we don't use the stones.